Imagine a world without Rome. It's 390 BC. The air is thick with the stench of charred oak and ozone. The Gauls, a tribal powerhouse from the north, have just finished their plunder. The city, if you could even call it that, is a smoldering ruin. For any other civilization, this would be the end. But for the Romans, this was the Great Reset. They didn't just rebuild, they obsessed over permanency. They looked at the ruins of their wooden huts and decided that their future would be written in stone, marble, and a revolutionary new material, opus cementicium, Roman concrete. Over the next 5 centuries, this tiny, broken settlement would metastasize into a sprawling megacity of over 1 million souls. Today, we are using advanced AI reconstruction to strip away 2 millennia of dust. We aren't just looking at broken columns, we are walking into the humidity of the baths, the blood-soaked sand of the arena, and the cramped, fire-prone apartments of the poor. This is Rome, the first world city rebuilt. To understand the Roman mind, you must stand in the Forum Romanum. This wasn't just a square, it was the nervous system of an empire that stretched from the sun-drenched Sahara to the misty borders of Scotland. Look at the Curia. It looks simple, a massive brick box, but inside, the air was heavy with the weight of destiny. 600 men, dressed in purple-bordered togas, sat on tiered benches. There were no microphones, no cooling systems, just the raw power of rhetoric. They debated the cursus honorum, the ladder of political advancement. Every tax levied on a farmer in Gaul, every legion dispatched to Parthia, was decided within these 4 walls. The floor you see in this reconstruction is opus sectile, multicolored marble imported from the farthest reaches of the empire, symbolizing that even the ground the senators walked on was conquered territory. Outside, notice the rostra. It was decorated with the rostra, or beaked prows of captured enemy ships. This was the stage for the greatest orators in history. When Julius Caesar was murdered on the Ides of March, the city went into a collective shock. Mark Antony didn't just give a speech here, he performed a masterclass in psychological warfare. He stood on this platform, held up Caesar's robe, ripped with 23 jagged holes, and named every assassin. The crowd didn't just riot, they transformed. They tore apart the benches of the Forum to build a funeral pyre right there. The Temple of Divus Iulius now stands on that exact spot. It remains the first place in Rome where a man was officially deified. But if the Senate was the brain, the Temple of Vesta was the soul. This small circular building was the most sacred spot in the city. Inside, the Ignis Aeternus, the eternal fire, was never allowed to die. It was tended by the 6 Vestal virgins. To be a Vestal was to be a living saint. They were the only women in Rome who could own property or give testimony without an oath. But their purity was tied to the safety of the state. If the flame went out, it was an omen of apocalypse. If a Vestal was found unclean, the punishment was a living death. She was taken to the Campus Sceleratus, placed in a small underground room with a bed, a lamp, and a crust of bread, and buried alive. Rome did not gamble with its gods. As the Republic died and the age of emperors began, the seat of power moved uphill, literally. The Palatine Hill overlooks the Forum, a constant reminder of who was truly in charge. Walk through the doors of the Domus Flavia, built by Emperor Domitian. The scale is intentionally crushing. The Aula Regia, the throne room, was designed so that when an ambassador approached the emperor, the walk felt endless. The ceilings were gilded in real gold, soaring 30 meters high. The walls were lined with giallo antico, a rare yellow marble from Numidia. Every inch of this palace screamed one message: you are immortal, I am a god. Notice the private stadium. Imagine having a 160-meter-long track in your backyard. Domitian didn't want to mingle with the dirty masses at the Circus Maximus. He wanted his own private gladiatorial bouts, his own foot races, his own world. This wasn't just luxury, it was isolation. The emperors lived in a cocoon of marble, while the city below groaned under the weight of its own population. The Roman government knew that 1 million hungry, bored people were a recipe for revolution. Their solution? Panem et circenses, bread and circuses. The Circus Maximus was a monster. It could seat 150,000 people, more than any modern NFL stadium. The stars weren't soldiers, they were the chariot drivers. They belonged to 4 factions, the blues, greens, reds, and whites. This wasn't just sport, it was tribalism. Fans would hurl lead curse tablets onto the track to pray for their rivals' deaths. The chariots were lightweight wooden frames. If you crashed, a shipwreck, you were likely dragged to death by your own horses unless you could cut yourself free with a small dagger kept in your belt. The wealth these men made was staggering. A champion like Scorpus won over 2,000 races before dying at the age of 27. Then we have the Flavian Amphitheater, known to us as the Colosseum. It was built on the site of Nero's former private lake, a symbolic gesture of giving the land back to the people. But the gift was blood. Look beneath the arena floor. This is the Hypogeum. It was a high-tech staging area. Slaves worked in near darkness, operating 28 manual elevators made of wood and hemp rope. They could release lions, leopards, or even elephants through trapdoors simultaneously. The Romans didn't just watch fights, they watched venatones, elaborate hunts where the arena was transformed into a forest or a desert with real trees and sand. In the opening 100 days, 5,000 animals were slaughtered. The scale of the violence was industrial. How did a city of 1 million survive without a single electric pump? Gravity. Pure, unadulterated gravity. The Aqua Claudia was an engineering miracle. It traveled 69 kilometers from the mountains. The slope, or gradient, was incredibly shallow, sometimes only dropping 1 foot for every 300 feet of length. If the slope was too steep, the water would burst the stone channels. Too flat, and it would stagnate. When the water reached the city, it entered a castellum aquae, a distribution tank. The water was prioritized: the public fountains for the poor, the public baths for hygiene, private homes of the rich who paid a water tax. This water fueled the thermae, the great baths. These weren't just swimming pools, they were social hubs. You would start in the apoditarium, changing room, move to the palaestra, gym, sweat in the sudatorium, steam room, then hit the caldarium, hot bath, the tepidarium, warm bath, and finally the frigidarium, cold plunge. The floors were heated by a hypocast system, an underground furnace where slaves stoked fires 24/7 to send hot air through gaps in the walls. It was the most advanced climate control in human history until the 1900s. Forget the marble. Most of Rome was brown, gray, and dirty. 90% of Romans lived in insulae. These apartment blocks were often 5 or 6 stories high. They were built by greedy landlords using cheap mortar and timber. Collapses were so common that Emperor Augustus had to pass a law capping their height to 70 feet. In modern times, the penthouse is for the rich. In Rome, it was the opposite. The ground floor had high ceilings and shops. The top floor was a cramped attic with no heat, no water, and a roof that leaked. There were no toilets. People used stercorari, dung collectors, or simply threw their waste out the window. If a fire started on the ground floor, which it often did because of oil lamps, the people on the top floors were trapped. Rome had the world's first fire brigade, the Vigiles, but their primary tool was often just tearing down neighboring buildings to create a fire break. For food, Romans went to Trajan's Market. It was a massive semicircular complex with 150 tabernae, shops. It used the Great Vault design to create a multi-story indoor shopping experience. You could buy grain from the state-subsidized annona, the grain dole, garum, fermented fish sauce, or expensive silks from the Silk Road. It was loud, it was crowded, and it was the center of the Roman economy. You cannot talk about Rome without the men in the shadows, the Praetorian Guard. While the legions were stationed on the frontiers, the limes, the Praetorians lived in the Castra Praetoria, a massive fortress integrated into the city's walls. They were the emperor's secret service, but they were also his biggest threat. They were paid 720 denarii a year, triple a regular soldier, and only served 16 years instead of 25. Notice their gear in our Reconstruction. The scorpion on their shield was the zodiac sign of Tiberius, the emperor who first centralized the guard. Their helmet crest was turned sideways, transversa, during parades. They were the kingmakers. In 193 AD, they actually put the entire Roman Empire up for auction, selling it to a man named Didius Julianus for 25,000 sesterces per soldier. Rome didn't fall in the way we think. It dissolved into the foundation of everything we build today. Look at the Pantheon. Its dome is 43 meters wide. It is made of unreinforced concrete, using heavy basalt at the bottom and light volcanic pumice at the top to keep it from collapsing under its own weight. 1,900 years later, it is still the largest unreinforced concrete dome in the world. When you look at a modern stadium, you are looking at the Colosseum. When you look at an apartment block, you are looking at an insula. When you look at a city's water system, you are looking at the ghost of the Aqua Claudia. Rome was the original megacity, a chaotic, brilliant, violent experiment in how to make 1 million people live together. The Romans had a saying, Roma invicta, Rome the unconquered. Looking at the blueprint they left for our modern world, perhaps they were right. Drop your suggestions in the comments below. I read every single one of them. If you found this deep dive into the original megacity fascinating, hit that like button and subscribe to Rewritten Realities. Thank you for traveling with me. We'll see you in the next reality.